Today, we are moving away from the sunny, palm-fringed beaches of fiction. Forget Robinson Crusoe. We are diving into a cold, brutal, and raw reality. This is the story of 4 Russian sailors who didn't just survive, they conquered the Arctic. For over 6 years, it was the summer of 1743. A small scouting vessel from Arkhangelsk was navigating the treacherous, ice-choked waters of the Svalbard archipelago. The ship, carrying 14 men, became hopelessly trapped in the shifting ice near Edge Island, fearing the ice would crush the hull like an eggshell. For sailors, say Himkov, Ivan Himkov, Stepan Sharapov, and Fedor Vorogin volunteered to cross the ice on foot. Alexei remembered a legend of a log cabin built years ago by previous hunters. They took what they thought was enough for a quick scout: a single musket, 20 precious lead bullets, an axe, a kettle, 20 pounds of flour, and flint. They found the cabin, but it was a re-gaping holes between the logs allowed the biting Arctic wind to whistle through the interior. Knowing that the polar night would soon bring temperatures down to -40 degrees Fahrenheit, they spent weeks meticulously stuffing every crack with thick local moss they scraped from the frozen rocks. This damp, frozen moss became their only shield against the lethal draft. Imagine standing on a shore of jagged ice, holding a bag of flour and a handful of bullets, realizing that you are now the only 4 humans on a frozen rock at the edge of the world. Their first major test came when a massive polar bear stalked their cabin. It was a terrifying realization. On this island, they weren't the hunters. They were the prey. Alexei gave a strict order. The bullets were for defense only. They couldn't waste a single shot on reindeer or foxes. Those 20 rounds were their nuclear deterrent against the bears. During that first encounter, with hearts pounding, they stood their ground. One well-placed shot dropped the massive predator just feet from their door. That bear provided them with their first set of heavy fur blankets and a grim reminder of the stakes. On Edge Island, not a single tree grows. In this polar desert, wood was more valuable than gold. Their only source was finvel, driftwood carried by ocean, currents from distant continents, or wreckage from lost ships. Because wood was so scarce and hard to find under the snow, they had to be brutally efficient with their fire. They couldn't afford to keep a roaring blaze just for comfort. Most of the time, the fire was used only to sear the outside of their meat. To conserve fuel, they grew accustomed to eating semi-raw bloody reindeer meat. This grim diet, while difficult to stomach, ended up saving their lives by providing essential vitamins that heat would have destroyed. They scavenged driftwood from the shore Arctic finvel and found old, rusted iron hooks and nails in the ruins of the cabin. Using the axe and a large stone as an anvil, they forged spearheads and arrows for their bows. They used the internal sinews and dried intestines of the animals they killed. These weren't just hunters, they became predators. They killed 250 reindeer and over 10 polar bears during their stay, often in life-or-death struggles using nothing but their handmade spears. The greatest enemy wasn't the polar bears, but the polar death scurvy. Alexei Himkov, the leader, knew the old northern secrets. He forced his men to drink warm, fresh reindeer blood and eat raw meat. It sounds gruesome, but it provided the vital vitamin C they needed. He also demanded they stay active. Even when the temperature dropped to -40 degrees Fahrenheit in the polar night, plunged the world into months of total darkness. Tragically, Fedor Vorogin, the most refined of the group, couldn't bring himself to eat the raw meat or drink the blood. He slowly withered away. His teeth fell out, his joints swelled, and he spent his final years as an invalid, eventually dying just months before the rescue. The 3 survivors buried him in a shallow grave of frozen stones for 6 years and 3 months. They lived as Stone Age men. They sewed clothes from skins using bone needles and thread made from nerves. They kept a perpetual fire burning in their hut because they were terrified of running out of tinder. Finally, August 1749, a miracle appeared on the horizon. A merchant ship, blown off its intended course by a massive gale, spotted their smoke signals. When the sailors saw the Robinsons, they were shocked. 3 men dressed in shaggy, multi-layered animal skins, looking more like beasts than humans. They didn't leave empty-handed. Their survival had turned into a massive commercial operation. They loaded the ship with 1,764 pounds, about 800 kilograms of rendered reindeer fat, 200 high-grade reindeer hides, hundreds of fox and bear pelts. September 28, 1749, they sailed into the Arkhangelsk harbor. The news spread like wildfire. The most emotional moment occurred on the dock. Alexei Himkov's wife, who had spent 6 years mourning her dead husband and wearing black, saw him on the deck. In a state of pure shock and joy, she didn't wait for the gangplank. She leaped into the freezing harbor water. Desperate to reach the man who had returned from the grave, these men proved that even in a place where nature tries to kill you every second, the human spirit, equipped with a bit of flour and an axe, is the most powerful force on the planet.